Pierre Жодловski is a composer, performer, and multimedia artist. His biography includes many fascinating points, and I hope that we will talk about many of them during today's conversation. Pierre, the first thing I want to ask you is your background in rock music, jazz, and as a performer. Please tell us, how do you combine academic music, electroacoustic, multimedia music?
Well, in a way, music is music. I don't like so much to separate music into different genres, or because since I was very young, I was listening to any type of music. And I remember very well when I was a child, for me, it was not important to say, oh, this is classical music, or oh, this is traditional Indian music. Oh, this is rock and roll. For me, everything was music, and that's it. And I think, of course, I started my music education in the academy. So I have a very, let's say, classic background. I was studying piano, music theory, and so on. But of course, when I was a teenager, I was listening also to pop music, to rock music. And I also studied saxophone, and because I studied saxophone, of course, I was having a strong interest with musicians like John Coltrane, for example, in jazz, who is a fantastic improviser and figure of the free jazz. And I think that progressively, the thing that I discovered was for me the question of freedom, of the freedom of the language, the musical language. And so I tried a lot of different things. I was member of a rock band for a few years. I also play jazz concerts. And then I started really more and more to be convinced that the best way for me to be really free inside of my imagination would be to compose, because with the composition process, in a way, I am totally free. And that was what I was finally searching, this freedom of being able to experiment, to try new things. So basically, now I am 50 years old, and I am, let's say, accumulating a big experience with all of those, let's say, experiments that I did. And for me, the most important remains one more time the freedom, the question of trying to, each time I am making a project, I am trying to experiment, to try new things. It's very difficult because, there are a lot of composers, there are a lot of fantastic people who are producing music every day, all the time. But generally, this is my obsession to include all those influences that I collect year after years, and to mix this performative aspect with the more conventional composition aspect in order to produce original projects.
You said several times about the notion of freedom. So the freedom somehow interconnects everything that you do, maybe even outside of music, right? So this notion, how far it extends?
Well, it extends to a philosophical question or ethical question, which is my position inside of our society, our world. Our world is very complex. The acceleration of communication technologies, social network, internet has made things growing very fast. We are right now dealing with the artificial intelligence question, with the engines like ChatGPT or this kind of environment. So the freedom in such a context is to feel, let's say, solid. I like to talk about the solidity of my position inside of the society, which means that I want to feel that I am convinced about what I am doing, and I'm trying to express with my music some questions which are, let's say, beyond the music. Sometimes I am very angry according to what happens in the world, and I am using this angriness inside of the artistical process. So I am not, in a way, I'm not making a big distinction between my life and my artistical life. All those things are very much combined. I think the art is the reflection of the feelings of the artist, and sometimes the artists are feeling bad because of many reasons, and they will create a specific music or a specific art which is also linked with what they are feeling. So yeah, this freedom is a general freedom, and I'm trying as much as I can to be free according to what I think, what I want to do, what I want to say, what I want to produce, to which environment I can work, which kind of groups of people I can work with, etc., etc.
You know, what you're saying is reminding me of something like holisticism, holistic approach. And one of the questions that I prepared for you is about education and your the associated composer for composition courses at IRCAM. And also, I read in your biography that you had something like workshops for young people. And what were these classes? What was important for you in these classes?
You mean when I was a student or when I was giving the masterclass?
You were giving, yes.
Well, to be precise, I started to give lecture and masterclass, I would say something like 10 to 15 years ago. I was teaching when I was very young. I was teaching in the university, and also in the engineer school, which was very interesting. But of course, at that time, I was more teaching some general, let's say, topics about contemporary music, about experimentation, and also about technique, which is very different than what I am doing right now, because, you know, now I am, after 25 years of producing concert, of writing pieces, and so on. So my experience right now is completely different. But let's say that in general, when I started to give master classes, if we come back to this question of freedom, of experimentation, and this topic that we have been talking a little bit previously, for me, the most important when it comes to be a teacher, in a way, for contemporary music, let's say contemporary art, it's really to try to understand who you are talking with. And the students in general are already artists. They are artists. So my position is really not to say to them, you have to do this, or you have to do this, or you have to do this. Is to ask them about what they are willing to do, and to try to help them to identify the most important things inside of this. So it can be sometimes very pragmatical or technical question, but sometimes I am facing students who are, let's say, doing art because, okay, it was a choice among other choices. And in cases like this, I'm trying to say to them, come on, art practice today, it's extremely important, because we as artists, we have a responsibility in this society, definitely. We cannot just say, oh, I don't care about the world, I am doing beautiful things. It doesn't work like this anymore. The question of beauty, for example, has been reconsidered since the 90s, 2000. What is the beauty? Even before, you know, if you think about plastical art like Marcel Duchamp or the surrealistic movement, even before, you realize that each time the definition of beauty changes, there is not one type of beauty. This is absurd to think in this way. And
Yes.
now, and extra nowadays, we have also politicals, or let's say one more time, I don't like so much the word politic, but ethic. We have to know why we are producing art, because art is a chain. It's a chain from the artist to the performers, in the case of music, up to the audience. And this chain is something where you are creating links to think. When I'm producing a contemporary music piece, I am never thinking about entertaining. I'm not composing to just make something, okay, I will go there and I will spend a good moment, I will have a beer and listen eventually to the music. No, I am asking the audience to be there and to be very active in the listening and visualizing process. So because of this, there is a reflection which is triggered inside of this process, reflection, emotion, and I like very much to combine those two things, to create complex emotions that you finally need to think about them after. So this is what I also try to explain and try to develop in the workshops with the students, this attitude, complex attitude, finally.
Maybe we could touch some technical questions. Our work is very much about technology, and one of the most notable areas for our center is multimedia composition. What can you say about your approach? What is the most important thing in multimedia?
You know, this is one more time, this is a question that I can answer today. But I would say 20 years ago and even 15 years ago, I would have problems to answer to this question, because for me, all this process in the beginning was very intuitive, and it was corresponding to a very strong frustration that I experienced when I was younger. When I was going to the concert of contemporary music, I always felt a very strong paradox between what I heard and what I saw. In terms of listening, I was listening extremely wonderful pieces of music, very complex, where I could feel the imagination of the composer with textures, with energies, with gestures, the density of the musical process, and so on. And when I was looking at the stage, unfortunately, I couldn't find the same type of dynamic. I was seeing musicians a little bit stuck in the very old-fashioned way of being on the stage. You know, they are entering on the stage, the audience is clapping, and then, for example, the conductor enters and he bows, and there is all this very old-fashioned ritual, which was for me absolutely paradoxical when it comes to the musical contents. So from that moment, from this frustration, which I couldn't really identify, you know, properly, I didn't make any strict analysis. I said to myself, okay, I think that when I am, as a composer, starting to think about music, I also visualize the things. I also see some lights, some colors. I'm thinking about stories, about creating dialectic situation where I can see something, I can hear something, and those two things are not only there to be together, they are there also to talk to each other, you know, to create a kind of exchange in terms of perception. And so years after years, I tried. I was really experimenting, you know. My teacher, Philippe Manoury, was saying to us as students, you know, the most important is that you will never stop to experiment. And that was a very smart advice, you know, that I kept inside of me. So therefore, I was experimenting a lot, different situation, using video, using lights. And some of the pieces, you know, are a little bit naive, a little bit fragile, but progressively I started to establish some principles, some rules, some certain specific language that I am right now developing. And the last projects that I did are really a synthesis of this experience, combining gestures, light, video, staging, the question of the relationship between all those elements. And I just want to finish to say something very important, is that I am a musician. I am not a stage director. I am not a cinematographer. I am not a light designer. I am using those tools inside of a music context, which is vectorized by the score. And this is extremely important.
So that was one of questions that I had in mind. So every part of this multimedia piece, I mean by part I mean light, video, everything else. Everything is, you think of a separate, like as a separate music part, like in score, right? So it
Yes,
little bit
exactly.
like that.
Yeah, yes. I mean, one thing is really to, one more time, to come back to a certain naive vision of beauty, which is, okay, I have a concert and then I will put beautiful lights and then I will put a video with some kind of textures and everything will be super nice. This is one way, and this is not my way. My way is to say, okay, I have a project in mind, and in this project, I need the video because I need to, for example, to extend the space to another space. And I need to create a connection between the bodies which are on the stage with another space, which is virtual space. And so therefore, I don't have the choice. I need to use the video. Or I will say, I want to use the lights to reveal a certain quality of the sounding texture. So I have to combine to make a real-time analysis of the sound and to extract from this analysis some parameters which will enable me to control the color of the light or the temperature of the light or the intensity of the light. So all those elements are significant. They are not only decorative, they are really significant, and they are, in my opinion, they are creating some complex objects which are the result of a fusion between all of them and creating synesthetic, for example,
Yes.
creating a kind of synesthetic environment that you observe as a one thing.
Yes.
And this is definitely the most important. And this is why I am putting in my scores all the informations about all those elements.
So your score must be very precise in these elements of video and lights and everything. Because in multimedia music, for our listeners, there are some programs that execute themselves and that are allowed to be interacted with by a performer. And one of your scores included a very precise textual score for the lights. What do you think of this task of maintaining this score and making sure that it is available for future, for you and for performers, maybe 15 years, 20 years after?
It's a very nice question because it touches a point concerning the definition of the artist. And I must say that sometimes I am meeting very young composer, let's say they are 25 years old, which is super young.
Yes.
And I can feel that they are already thinking about what will happen when I will be dead. Will my scores be still performed, which means that those artists, very young, are already thinking about posterity. And I must say, to be totally honest, that I was not thinking about this since, maybe I am right now considering this because I see that a lot of people want to play my music and I need to be very well organized and I need to provide the patches, I need to provide all those archives, as you said, and to make a good documentation. But for me, I was never saying to myself, oh, you have to be the genius, that you will cross the time and so on. Because I don't know, I think it's a little bit 19th century, very romantic definition of the artist. Our society goes so fast. I mean, if we are already able to manage to be an artist all our life, it's already a miracle, because
Yes.
it's extremely, extremely, extremely difficult to sustain constant activity as an artist. And I think that basically, if you are a strong artist, okay, it will always be some people, if they really want to play your music, as far as you, of course, as you have the score available and the electronic parts available, they will manage. I am artistic director of festivals since always, I choose this. I didn't want to be really a permanent teacher. I prefer to involve myself in programming and developing a network and to meet musicians and to meet people. And sometimes I decided to program some pieces which were already old in terms of technology, some pieces from the 80s, for example. And it was a challenge to make them, but I really wanted, and finally I found a solution. So I think that it's important, if you want your music to be performed when you are alive, it's extremely important that you give your music the best chance to be performed.
Yes.
But then it's very important also to do not think in this way that, okay, when you start to compose, this question is not important. Just be crazy as much as you want, Yes. Remember this piece from Stockhausen, the string quartet with helicopter.
Yes.
Okay, this piece has been performed maybe 3 times, 4 times, not more. But okay, but nevertheless, it's existing, this piece, And if you really want to do it, you can. Yes. So, I want to say by this that it's not good to limit yourself because of this reflection. But on the other hand, once you finalize a project, it's your responsibility as an artist to make it available as good as it is possible for the performers.
And it's your best interest also.
It's your best interest,
Yes.
Of course.
Let's talk about the electronic part. What's your approach in very short words, maybe?
This is difficult to be short with this question. I will try, But the thing is that for each project, for each piece, I have a specific approach, because each context that I am creating are involving different types of methodology of working. So for me, the most important is, first of all, to have a strong concept, an idea, which is defining the type of relationship that I can establish with eventually electronic or video or whatever. And then I'm starting to work. And inside of the working process, it's also each time very specific. Sometimes I am starting with the score and then I develop the electronic. Sometimes I do the opposite. Sometimes I am making improv session for 1 week or 2 weeks, and then I extract from those elements the material for the composition. So, it's difficult to answer as a unique matter.
For electronic music, for multimedia music, it is obvious to use something like Maximus P. But do you use it for instrumental music, especially for your cumulative music? And tell us about it.
No. I am not using any. I am not using any CAO, like assisted composition software. I am not using this because I don't know. I was never attracted by this. I prefer to try. I prefer to try things, to listen to them, and to really shape them according to the result, according to what I hear. So it means that I am making simulations, sometimes very complicated simulations of the music.
When I myself try to compose music using algorithms, it always becomes a very simplistic rule.
I don't know, because you can have for example, Open Music is a software where you can develop very complex rules, very complex algorithm, and so on. And when it comes to some composers who really need to extract some information, which are the result of heavy calculation or mathematical calculation, the computer are done for this. The thing is that I am not thinking in this way. I am more thinking dramaturgically, and concerning dramaturgy, no computer will give me the solution about how to combine, the time and the situation linked with the gesture and so on. So I am basically trying a lot, filming a lot, the rehearsals. I'm really working on this, but in the context of cumulative music, as you ask, it was a cycle of pieces that I decided to develop upon one idea, one principle, which is to create loops and to cumulate them vertically, but in a very excessive way. And of course, for most of the pieces that I did, I had to restart the process from the beginning many times because I was going too fast generally in the cumulating process. So after a few minutes, it was already full packed. So I said, okay, I need to start again with more minimalistic materials, and then I will see how it goes. But it was one more time. I was just listening to the result progressively according to what I was editing.
As I already stated, you're the associated composer at IRCAM for a composition course, and you also studied in IRCAM. Could you tell what opportunities do you have at IRCAM? How do you use it?
IRCAM is a fantastic place, very big, with a lot of people. So first thing is that when you enter in IRCAM, you have the feeling that you are joining a kind of community. It's always a lot of people there, researchers, artists, composers, technicians, and it's very dynamic. So I think that one of the aim of the cursus, as I did it and as I am right now teaching, is one of the aim is to use this opportunity to establish a link with IRCAM for the future. That okay, you are there for 1 year and you can meet a lot of people, and maybe for the future you will be able to come back to work there and to enjoy again to work in such a wonderful place. This is very simple, but I mean this is very important. The other thing is that, Paris is Paris. So it's a very big city where you can really meet a lot of people. And when you have the concert at the end of the cursus at IRCAM, it's always a lot of audience, a lot of professionals who are coming there, who want to, discover new voices of the contemporary music, because they know that the composers who has been selected for this cursus are generally having a very high level and they are very good. And this is a nice moment to discover eventually some new voices of the contemporary music. But finally, unfortunately, I would say, life is life. So once you are out of the IRCAM, you need to have a professional, dynamic. And whatever you are going out of IRCAM or out of any high school or any academy or whatever, then you need to face the real society problems, how to compose and how to live from composition, how your music can be performed, in which way, how to collaborate with ensemble, how to collaborate with studio production center, and so on. So, this is the moment in the career which is very exciting, but which is also very scary. And I am trying as a teacher to help the students to anticipate this, to figuring out, okay, how can I also just keep going and jump into the professional life without dramatic issues? And believe me, it's very difficult. It's not easy.
Have you ever received a specific technical help from the programmers or engineers? Have you ever had something that you couldn't do yourself, and then you go to IRCAM and they somehow do it for you?
But of course, this is one of the aim at IRCAM, which is to provide for the composers or the artists in general some specialists who are really able to program, who are really able to listen to the artist and to transform the ideas of the artist into something sound environment or special treatments for the instrument. And I know a lot of composers who are really happy to work with this companion, with this person who is associated with you when you are composing. On my side, it's a little bit different because I was quite independent. So I tried also to manage by myself, and I developed my proper tools and my proper knowledge, and I worked hard. And also because I was a programmer of a festival, and during this festival in the beginning in Toulouse, we had nothing. So I was also making the technique, plugging the console, mixing, So I learned a lot. But of course, it happened to me that I had to ask for some support, for some help. For my performance, I developed a patch in Max MSP in order to perform with some sensors. And for this, I got the fantastic help from different person at IRCAM. So yeah, this is very natural that you cannot be completely update of the technology evolution. It's a full-time job,
Yes.
So when you are composing at a point, you are losing a little bit the last up-to-date technologies, and in this case, you should ask for some help because it's
Yes.
simply very, very, very nice.
Does it somehow restricts you, or more? In which ways it makes you more free, or maybe more restricted by not doing it directly? What do you think?
I don't think it's changing, because when you are working with some assistant in a way who will be part of the process, it's your responsibility to say yes or no. So you are still completely free. You can work with a person who will say, okay, I will develop this for you. Okay, you want to do something with the voice, I will prepare virtual voice for you, blah, blah, blah. And then you listen to the results, and it's your responsibility to say, oh, okay, it's good, or no, I don't want this. It doesn't correspond to what I had in mind. So I don't think that there is any restriction in terms of artistical freedom by doing this. Of course, you need to be smart, and you need to have a basic knowledge. This is why this cursus at IRCAM is important, because the students who are going out of the cursus, they have a knowledge, and they will be able to be faster in the communication later on with those assistants. They will say, no, don't use granular synthesis, because granular synthesis would not be proper. And so the assistant says to himself or herself, okay, this composer knows what is going on, So in this case, I can challenge myself and propose some different solutions.
Pierre, thank you very much. We will have pleasure to listen to one of your pieces at the Biomechanics Festival.
Thank you. Also, I'm very happy that the festival can keep going nowadays, and I am extremely happy that you will be able to perform this piece, Mad Max, and this piece is really also a synthesis of a lot of things that I have been doing, combining light, gestures, video. So I'm extremely proud that it can happen, and that you will be able to share this with the audience. Thank you so much.